So you've heard that the housing market is changing and you want a crystal ball to truly know what is going to happen. Well, stick around with me and I will share with you the 3 things that will happen in real estate as if you had a crystal ball. Well, thanks for sticking around. On this month's National Housing Market Update, we're going to keep you current. And remember, spending time learning about the market is much better than trying to ever time it. And 3 things will happen in the housing market as we move forward, as they already have in the past. And these first 6 months in 2022's National Housing Market Update has definitely been defined by rates. And as mortgage rates continue to change, we have seen them remain relatively flat. And there are some key indicators of what happens when rates rise more than 1% in a given year, and that's home prices appreciate. As you look at inventory, fact number 1 that you will see over the rest of the year is home prices will continue to rise. Now let's dive into what chief economist at Freddie Mac shared regarding mortgage rates stay relatively flat, as he said that mortgage rates continue to inch downward this week, but are still significantly higher than last year, affecting affordability and purchase demand. Heading into the summer, the potential home buyer pool has shrunk, supply is on the rise, and the housing market is normalizing. This is welcome news following unprecedented market tightness over the last couple years. This is welcoming news. As many people are experiencing the news not in a welcoming way, it's because of the misinformation shared, but the countless amount of different type of offers like VA loans, contingent home sales that are being accepted right now in this given month is at an all-time high compared to the prior 6 months and or over the last 12 due to, like we said, a non-normalized market, abnormal. In fact, it was that of mania. So now that we're entering a normalized market, welcoming an amazing time for both buyers and sellers, what you'll see here is that mortgage rates have definitely stabilized. Now, may they hit a peak at this point? We don't think so. Maybe a little bit higher. However, they will probably start seeing some softening as we go into 2023. And remember, when rates change for the reason why they did, which was to grant everybody the wish that they made, which was please slow down this housing market so that way it can normalize, is rising rates did the exact thing that they needed to. And now there's great opportunity with home prices still rising, equity to gain. But what you see is when rates rise, they take the elevator. When they come down, they take the stairs. So as we start looking at current mortgage rates over the last 5 decades, you can see millennials, the second largest generation, are entering their peak home buying stages. What this means is that you have a lot of individuals entering the housing market for the first time and understand they don't know outside of the news over the last couple months and or I'll just call them complaints. But remember, when you wish and you get granted, you need to accept. And that's what most of the nation was wishing, was for the housing market to normalize and slow down. And the only way we could do that, because fact number 2 today, supply and demand, inventory is still at an extreme low. Demand, even though it's softening, we don't have enough housing to meet the demand. And therefore, all these people entering, buying homes for the first time, the good news is they get to buy them at relatively low rates. They're not buying them at the historical lowest level of rates like many people got to experience over the last 2 years. But there's still an amazing opportunity when you look at the rates that they're entering into today. So now let's dive into what a lot of people are struggling with. And as a consultant for real estate and professional teams all across the nation and in Australia, what you understand is there's a difference between perfect news and or expert news. What I mean by that is perfect information or expert information being given by whoever is hosting the platform that you call it news. Now, as a real estate consultant, one of the important parts that I want to provide, as well as real estate professionals across the nation, is not trying to give you perfect information, but let's just give you expert information. So then that way you're not getting misleading news. Example would be when you go to the doctor. They don't give you perfect information. What they do is share with you what they see, what's happening, the symptoms, and then they provide you information, prescription, treatment, and then say, come back in a month. And in a month, they rinse, wash, repeat, and the same thing happens. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's how the treatment affected you. Here's what's happening. Here's what I want to do now. And real estate's always been a long-term investment. And as a real estate expert, that's our duty, is to give you expert information. That means you got to check back in next month. And as long as you make decisions with good long-term thinking, real estate is going to continue to remain the best long-term investment when you look at the overall gains that you can achieve. So as we now dive into what to expect with rates, you can continue to follow them from that of what the 10-year treasury is. And as you can see, for almost 50 years, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage has followed and gone along with what's been happening with the 10-year treasury yield at an average spread of about 1.7. So we'll follow the treasury, we'll follow the rates, and we'll continue to let you guys know month over month what the experts are saying is going to happen. Now, as you also dive into what the experts are saying, and really fact number 3, which is, will the housing market crash? I'm giving you the answer of no. Not from myself, but from the experts' opinions. First, let's go ahead and look at what opinions and or facts are, which is defined by that of what a market correction or crash is. A market correction, which is prior to a crash, is a decline of 10% or greater in price of a security asset and or financial market. So again, as we look at will we see a correction, is currently the average 7 forecast on housing appreciation 2022 is a 9% appreciation gain, meaning that home values will continue to rise due to what we shared. And obviously, if you want to look at our prior monthly market reports, thank you for following, subscribing to our channel, as we'll keep you updated every single month on what's happening. And what we're seeing right now, our home prices are continuing to go up, zero likelihood of a correction with a decline of 10%. Now, as we look at Danielle Hell, chief economist of Realtor.com, the housing market is at a turning point. We are starting to see signs of a new direction, but the ball is still in the seller's court in most housing markets. Now, the turning point I will relate to Formula One. Cars that are going 200 miles per hour down a straightaway, and then their turning point have to decelerate down to 60 miles per hour. That's exactly what it feels like in the news right now and or people's minds because of how extreme the market was post-pandemic. So what I want to talk about that is when we went through the pandemic and then what happened after, everything changed to like going 200 miles per hour down the speedway. And now we're correcting to a normal turning point. We have to slow down dramatically. But really, when we talk dramatically, it's really what's happened pre-pandemic. This is a report from Showing Time, which tracks the showing index of people visiting properties that are listed, meaning showings on homes. And you can see pre-pandemic levels within this index, we're still not at. However, this turning point of the speed we were going over the last 2 years when nobody sold during the pandemic, and then the awareness of all-time lows in interest rates, is we saw a lot of people speeding, i.e. rushing to housing. But remember, a lot different than in the past because they were rushing with requirements, meaning they had to have the appropriate jobs. And we'll cover that in a moment when we go through that of what happens when we enter different economic situations like recessions. The existing home sales, as you can see, pre-pandemic sales, we were around 5.5 million home sales. Now, again, this is existing home sales, not new homes. And as you look at where we're currently at, projected in April, 5.6, you're right. In 2021, we sold over 6 million home sales. So now we're just entering again pre-pandemic levels. So while you see them say home sales are down, duh, we need that. It's a requirement for what we wanted to see in normalizing the market. So don't listen to the news like it's a sudden impact or a crash. No, we're slowing down to take the turn appropriately so we can see what a more normalized market was. But all you had to do was be in the market of 2017, 18, and 19 to know that those were really good housing markets for both sellers and buyers to be in. So as we dive into April 2022, the average days on market, you can see national was 17, which is extremely low from that of a norm, as well as the national amount of offers on a home was 5.5. We still have some markets that are still in an extreme seller's market. Their slowdowns taking a little bit longer. But what this is due to the supply and demand, as long as your home is priced appropriate and the condition is well, homes are being competed for still on average 5 offers per listing. The number one mistake right now in a slow down entering a turn is overpricing a property, and many people didn't know that we were slowing it down as fast as we did, which means those mistakes are made. However, they can be corrected, and as you move forward, pricing your home appropriately and making sure that the condition is great will lead you to an awesome seller's market and ability to take advantage of terms that maybe you could not have in the past. Now, let's dive into, though, what's ahead, because crystal balls are something we'll never have. However, there's a lot of predictability in housing, just as we've seen in the past, and people could have shared more in the present. But unfortunately, if you're not keeping current and spending time learning about the market, timing it is something that the headlines and most information and or newscasts will ever give you appropriate information to actually act appropriate in that time period. So let's dive into what we look at from Chief Economist, Mortgage Bankers Association, is mortgage rates are likely to plateau near current levels. The financial markets have attempted to price in the impact of Fed actions over this cycle, and they are likely also pricing in the economic slowdown that will result once we are past this rate spike and associated volatility. MBA expects that potential homebuyers may be more willing to re-enter the market. What is this telling you? Is right now is an amazing time period that a lot of people may re-enter into the market once they start to feel, because they're using emotions versus those that are logical using facts. They're staying in it right now, taking advantage of the mistakes that people are making, as well as the opportunity of a temporary moment of less demand and or, remember, slow down in the turning period of a normalizing market. Now, total home sale forecast, as you can see, is over 6 million homes being sold. Again, we know that builders are struggling with the ability to continue to provide the housing that we need to slow down supply and demand. And obviously, though, as you enter any type of turning point in a real estate market, builders also are impacted. You'll see some great opportunities there, while people who no longer qualify are able to purchase. You may find yourself being able to take advantage of a great new build situation. Now, Realtor.com has shared the impact, though, of what happens and the suffering from housing shortage, which experts don't believe the market is in a bubble or a crash is in the cards. Like during the Great Recession, the nation is still suffering from a housing shortage that has reached crisis proportions at a time when many millennials are reaching the age when they start to consider home ownership. That's likely to keep prices high. This goes back to the messaging we were speaking earlier of that second largest generation outside the boomers who are entering peak purchase power and prime. And again, they don't know anything other than the fact that the interest rates are much lower than previous decades, and people have purchased homes in the past. However, as we look at what does impact the demand is the misunderstanding of what a recession does in the housing market. So let's dive into really, again, definitions today of what is a recession. A significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy, lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. Now, this is where I want to slow down. And I understand that there are many people that go through struggles. There are many people that this affordability and what's happening in housing are impacting negatively. And I don't speak lightly to that. The reason why I say that, though, is because just due to the fact that we are entering into a slowdown period economically, we have to look at the other factors or indicators that lead to how does that impact housing, though, versus a lot of our personal lives and or situation. And as you can see, recessions doesn't equal a housing crisis. In fact, home prices during the last 6 recessions have risen over 4 of them. And one of them that actually was the major decline was not from a recession. What it was from was poor lending practice, meaning people were getting loans without jobs, without incomes, without assets. And as you guys know, many of you go through the lending process today. It is not easy to get a loan. In fact, lending guidelines are very strict, and many people can't get a loan even though they desire to have one due to regulations. And again, sometimes we have to learn from past mistakes to implement those in the present. But I'm very excited that our lending regulations still remain high, and it is not easy to get a loan. However, even though house price appreciation is occurring, home values have gone up, it's still very affordable when you look at the overall income that a combined family makes and where rates are currently today. I'm not saying that it's affordable for everyone, just historically over the last 30 years, it still is. So as we close with just 3 last slides that we'll cover in just about a minute, if you're looking to buy a home, I would still recommend you do so even at the higher interest rates, because we have no reason to believe that home prices will stop appreciating. Home values going up is only a problem when you're trying to buy. When you own, it's a gift. And that is closing the message I just shared of not taking lightly the struggles that some are going through. However, if those would have purchased several years ago versus waiting, the ease for them or their market may be different. But today we know that home prices will continue to grow, and the change in interest rates not significant enough to make up any amount of that gap in a relatively several year period of time. Is you take the stairs back down when the rates go down, you refinance, but you take advantage of the appreciation and the home ownership by not waiting today and the gift that you get of owning an asset. And if you think it's too late now, look at the difference from 2019 to 24. The potential growth in family wealth over the next 5 years was going to be $39,000. What does it look like now, because home values have gone up, is $96,000 on the same purchase price relative to what the average is now to that of what the average was in 2019, which this is, again, the gift that long-term investment real estate has always provided, which is equity and increased net worth versus anything that you're only trying to do for a short-term gain. So for me to you, thank you again for giving us your time, energy, and attention. And we want to continue to make sure that we're providing you expert information from the top economists across the nation versus just trying to give you good news or take advantage of bad news. It's the housing news this month in Keeping Current Matters. I'm Justin Martin. I look forward to talking to you guys next month as we bring you back to what's happening in housing. And remember, spending time learning about the market is the only way to be versus trying to time it.